Come on, buddy, it's you and me again. Here we go. 15th time! We can do this.
O Haramnomicon, heed my plea. Show us something for us to see. May it be raveled with boobs, may it be battered with knot. Please just give us something with much, much plot.
Finally! It is done! And all it cost was losing my head. Ironic, isn't it? Happy Halloween, all you ghouls and ghosts out there, or in my case, happy harem Halloween, because that's all I seem to be doing lately. It was not on purpose either. Last year's Monster Musume review just came at the right time when it finished releasing, but this year, I decided to pick a show that was something everyone wanted to see, one where I had a lot to say, and most importantly, one where I could finish the whole thing without getting scared out of my mind. And according to the poll, one of the shows that fit this month and was highly requested just so happened to be an anime that almost got many of my past videos taken down again and again and again. YouTube copyright, the real horror of the holiday. But enough talk, it's time to journey through the jaw-dropping jugulars, the bottomless bundle of brash exploration, and to... Okay, I get it. Here's Highschool DXD. High school student Issei Hyudo is your run-of-the-mill pervert who does nothing productive with his life, peeping on women and dreaming of having his own harem one day. Things seem to be looking up for Issei when a beautiful girl asks him out on a date, although she turns out to be a fallen angel who brutally kills him. Who knew? However, he gets a second chance at life when a beautiful senior student, Riez Gremory, a top-of-the-class devil who revives him as her servant, recruiting Issei into the ranks of the school's occult research club. Now Issei must train hard to survive the harsh new world opened up to him, if he ever hopes to one day achieve his harem conquest. So, after all of that, as ridiculous as the execution was, I want to say first that the plot across all 3 seasons was pretty good. Because Highschool DxD is a centralized harem, the format was able to pace itself between the major arcs. But looking at the show just on season 1 alone, since that's all we have time for right now, it was... After you take away all of the ramped up goofy fun and edgy humor, I felt at times the story had a very stop and go method of progression where one section would be fun, simple, or chill, which in Highschool DxD's case is littered with fan service we've come to know and love, while the other bits are left for actually trying to tell a serious story in that universe. I'm going to say right now that this is probably not your show if you're heavily religious. The theming in Highschool DxD about the character depth of Christianity and how corrupt each side can be it angels or demon, are so blatantly obvious in the realms of anime that it's basically the price of admission. It's not a bad thing at all, but because come on, you know this show will not delve deep into those issues, for it's all about that base. And speaking about that base, let's talk about fan service, since that's this show's bread and butter. Among other things. Let me introduce to you Shannon's patent-pending booby blocker. Also, I want to say that I do not condone nor encourage minors to watch ecchi anime of any kind, especially as something as saturated as this. I know it's the internet and people watch whatever they want, no matter what age they are, but I wanted to address this fact for people who generally do not know what they are getting themselves into. Not because, oh, it's a damage to our children, but morally because even though this is fiction, this show has a colorful way of showing how breast physics work. And I can tell you personally, they don't work that way. This show also talks a bit about people's private ways of how they deal with sexual fetishes, tensions, and stress by talking about different escapades and example. And unless you have an understanding of why those people do what the things they do, then you're gonna get really confused on some of the references. So in short, let people do what they want to do, don't judge them, be healthy, and eat a burger. Anyway, High School DXD is that kind of show for me where I first thought I would hate it for how stupid it is. And believe me, it's a stupid show. But then I realized 12 hours later I locked myself in my room, put my headphones on, and marathoned it without sleep. It just has that kind of captivating charm to it. As overbearing as the plot can execute, this show is loud, brash, and prides itself in being sexualized, and I loved it. This is why I like harems that don't dance around what it's supposed to be, but I'll delve into that more when I get into characters. Now the flaws. Now, how do I say this? Comparing it to other seasons, this was the one in the middle for me, because it didn't ride around the many directions that season 2 did, but it did not give me that sense of development that season 3 had. It just was at times. I think a good reason for this was that as extreme as the fan service can be, sometimes they can give me too many opportunities for the boobies in the butt, for season 1 specifically, which leaves me open to be numb in saturation to it all at the worst possible times. So after like 20 minutes of bombastic action and ridiculousness, I'm so saturated in the visuals to where the veil is gone, and all I'm left with is overly complicated scenarios for why characters are screaming so much that I have to ask, how is that even fucking necessary? This didn't happen as often as season 2, but it was something I had to note. Speaking of which, the plot in itself is all over the place. Ridiculousness was fine on certain occasions, but other times even I got pulled off guard of how convoluted it all can be when, again, the veil is unmasked. Another flaw is that the main antagonist who shows up towards the latter half of the season was boring to me. He didn't feel like a final boss, more like some rich punk they got off the street and had him to be an appetizer for our main lead to have some motivation and get serious for his last big fight. I guess what I'm trying to say is that season 1 felt too much like a setup season for later events, where yes, when seen at a distance, it's a better introduction into its universe, though on its own merit doesn't captivate much actual plot direction that it needs to. As long as it gives segue to fan service bits and character focus, then it seems just fine with being mediocre. Of course, it's the characters that really make or break a harem, so unfortunately I expected as much. Let's just hope that by the time I'm done with characters, I can resalvage the fire I had for this show. The characters of High School DXD come in 3 flavors: sweet, spicy, and tangy, in which when delved deeper it really conveyed my other enjoyment, hatred, or confused vibe I got from them individually. What I loved best across the board was that most characters got some sort of banter from their respective season, though in season 1's case, much was left to the status quo of the main club members, with a few exceptions of course, with Issei, our main lead, being an outlier for the entire franchise. Now I've already talked about him in depth in my top 10 video, so if you want to go watch that, I highly recommend it. But in terms of Issei for season 1, it only hammers down how he makes this show. It wouldn't be the same without his antics or development. Here we have another average teenager all of a sudden getting the worst rejection of his life on a date, only to be resurrected and set forth on a journey he could never imagine. What I love about Issei is that not only is he moronically charming, noble, and goofy, but that he's still a reflective character that dwells on past happenings. When the season goes into its half climax, he was reintroduced to the catalyst that started it all for him, only to reflect on what he's experienced, boiling himself in all emotions of frustration, sadness, and pity in order to come to a resolve that was befitting of that first arc, and some great closure for his character. After that point, he really just hit the ground running. As a harem lead, I cannot say enough about how memorable he was to me. For an ecchi show, he's the right balance of stark yet relatable. Each interaction in season 1, while flat in terms of status quo, was revitalized by his reactions. Even his goofy face expressions give him so much life. If it was any other type of character, the show would have failed for me, honestly. Issei really shows how much being a centerpiece means in the world of harems. But let's move on to the real debate. And welcome back to Waifu Wars Underworld Edition. Today on the playing field we have a well-rounded cast of athletes, even though in my opinion most not all of the girls at some point come off as generic in personality for season 1 on its own. Yay! Now don't get me wrong, their mannerisms and character designs are what really save them, keeping them nice and watchable. Starting with our frontrunner, Ria's Gremory is the main female lead of the show, with her signature scarlet hair promoting every corner you can get your hands on. Overall, I have to say that she did live up to her main lead status in a great way. I loved how she owned her sexuality as a confident, dignified rookie leader of her own house, while still having acute moments of being off guard by whatever the other cast does. Obviously, when she's alone with Issei, you can tell how much they grow together for each other, both in their comedic sexual chemistry as well as a heartfelt one. So it's no surprise that I think that she's the best girl this season. However, when she's with Akane, her second in command, she becomes the most off-kiltered and flawed, showcasing that she's not always the stoic leader that she tries to convey. Transitioning to Akane, that's what I love about her, because she's able to give a devil's advocate to every other member in the group, and just like Ria, she's also known to take charge of her sexuality, though you could say she does this the best out of every other girl. Beyond that, Akane loves to stir the pot between Rias and Issei, making playful advances onto him that, unlike in other anime, plant the seed for something more later on. It all adds up to her trademark mystique and passive-aggressive behavior, always seemingly hiding more than we know. Of course, she doesn't develop much beyond that in season 1, but it's still a good performance. As for Ashia, who got the first real arc focused on her, I'm going to have to admit I don't have much to say on her, unfortunately. Ashia just came off as a plot device to move the exposition about the sacred gears and the tensions between the church and demonic factions. Sure, she's adorable and gives contrast to all the other girls, but her core personality is nothing groundbreaking, just fitting the role. This same can be said for Kiba and Kaneko, since each of them don't get much screen time, and when they are in the spotlight, it's either the standard princely type or lolly characters. This furthers my point when I said earlier of season 1 being a setup season, because Kiba and Kaneko later on get truly developed arcs dedicated to them, whereas characters they really show what they're capable of. But on season 1's own merit, I wish they had a little more layering than just placeholders. But until then, it's animation time. Today's studio on DXD's two-dimensional chopping block is TNK, who, well, looking at their past record, it's no surprise this was picked up. Now, TNK isn't the studio I often see, but by looking at their mostly ecchi and male demographically inclined roster, I can confidently say this is the shiniest of the bunch. Yes, character designs are the defining factor here, as the thick outlining of certain parts are prominent, giving a crisp look to them, while action scenes in their entirety does the job just fine in my opinion. I guess my only main issue with the animation is the color ambiance and constant streaks of light. It gets boring after a minute when everything is saturated in dark reds and purples for that demonic feel, but the backdrops and designs do that already. It's nothing bad per se, but like I said earlier, when my numbness for the TNA occur, I just want to skip certain scenes and get on with the jumbled plot. The light effects gleaming in my eyes as the show's indication of powering up didn't really help much either, since it was mostly one of the few solid colors overlaying the foreground, but at this point I'm just getting really picky, so don't mind me on that. The same can be said for the opening theme. Just like most of the show, it does the job that it's given, and after the first go around, I just honestly had to skip it. But its ending is a different story entirely. I love the visuals as it hammers down the trend of all the girls owning who they really are via the pole dancing getup. Yeah, it's pandering to the purest form if you want to look at it from the opposite point of view, but I like the nice touch with everyone's mannerisms as well as the suit of playing cards that give it homage to the chess structure carried out throughout the plot of the show. While some sequences did end up being just visual camera movements over one static image, at one point in the ending, I was still immersed by its fun, so I had a blast with it. With the soundtrack, I thought nothing much of it though. I really didn't pay much attention to it with all the visual eye-candly hurtling on my screen, except during the action scenes where loud chords were played to convey something massive. Besides those moments, everything else seemed lost in audio translation. Now moving on to sub versus dub debate, I want to say yes. Funimation's interesting PR for this dub really does help the notion of DXD's stupid yet fun atmosphere. But as solid as the dub was, I have to give the point to the sub for one specific reason: the outburst. There's just a certain charm to the original audio's ridiculous outbursts that make me gravitate towards it more. It fits the show's stupidity, where I thought the English voices were lacking something in the what the fuck or what the hell am I watching department that really is specialized for the Japanese audio. I can hear it all now. The constant moans and screams of the cast hurling towards their own stupidity is music to my ears. Hey guys, so yeah, no after show this time. I just really couldn't think about anything I could really put here. Everything seems so straightforward that if you watched anime for a long while, you kind of know how it ends. Good guy wins, yada yada yada, move on. Kind of another reason why I thought season 1 was more of a setup season, because it's morely season 2 and 3 where it really gets spoilery. So until then, we'll just move on to final thoughts, I guess. Roll it! Highschool DXD as a series is a really fun time, giving us an atmosphere to revel in its stupidity. It's not trying to be an Evangelion with psychological constructs, and it's not trying to even have a coherent plot. Take it from me, this show can be unenjoyable the moment you get too used to the boob physics, so I suggest you pace your watching on this one for a better effect. Regardless, it's a show about boobs and breasts, and it knows it. While season 1 on its own doesn't come off as strong, where its setup format makes all the flaws more visual, it doesn't take away from my overall enjoyment. Between the goofy Issei, the ridiculous atmosphere, and the raging renditions of plot, I can confidently say that at least for me, this is one of the best and memorable ecchi anime experiences in a while. So after some consideration and a 3-mile hike through slime-infested terrain, I give Highschool DxD the recommendation to buy it when it comes out in your area, and a watchability rating of M for mature. Maybe a lot of you will disagree with me because of how stupid the plot can be, but as I said before, in harems, a good lead, characters, and a notion for fun are really all you need to be an enjoyable show. Not everything in the anime world needs to be thought-provoking. As for watchability rating, it stands where it is. Even for ecchi standards, this anime is on the extreme side of fan service, where nudity will be showcased every chance they get, especially the OVAs. There's a reason this series got a lot of my videos copyright struck at some point for its content. Anyway, legal streaming sites. Highschool DxD Season 1 is viable for North American audiences on Crunchyroll, Hulu, and Funimation, with the dub of course being exclusive to Funimation side, as well as Anime Lab and Mad Men respectively for you Australians. As for my anime recommendations for today, I first bring you Highschool of the Dead, another show with an emphasis on stupid physics and ridiculous plot, but geared for the action fan in mind. And another will be Korwa Zombie Desuka, another harem anime with a Halloween vibe that's clever, ridiculous, and has a wonderful harem lead. Now I would also recommend DxD's Discount Brethren, Shinmai Mao no Testament, and Dakaraboki wa H ga Dekinai, but I won't because I actually wasn't a fan of these. Why I wasn't a fan of these? Well, that's a story for another day. For now, that's all about wraps up this video of mine. To think I've only touched the surface of this series. And before people start asking, yes, I will pick this series up again for later seasons, but for now I think I secluded myself in the harem nomicon enough for a while, and I need a break. After the Utano Prince Summer review, of course. So yeah, like our Facebook, support us on Patreon, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This has been Shannon, and until next time, stay tuned to Anime America.
Want to support the production? Check out our brand new store on Store Envy. For a small price, you can have a one-of-a-kind poster made by yours truly. If you can only give a small amount to help us out, check out our Patreon page. Any amount you wish to give us goes towards our production needs, so anything you can give us helps us a lot. To keep up with the latest in Anime America stuff, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Tumblr. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe to Anime America for more awesome reviews and top 10 lists. If you're interested in anything in pop culture, be sure to subscribe to Pop Spectrum. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned to Anime America.